Bontari, good afternoon, happy Monday. This is Sincerely Carolina. Hi. I hope that you had a nice weekend. And I also hope that you're not struggling with allergies like I am, because it's been bad. But hey, Sahara dust. All right, so today we have a very interesting and informative show. We have here the Becoming Equal project. We have 3 members, and I'll have them introduce themselves and explain a little bit about the project. And I hope that we learn something today that will make us more understanding and kind as persons from our community. All right, so we're gonna start with you, Finn. Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I'm Finn. I use he, him pronouns, and I like to draw a lot, so.
Okay, that's fine. All right, Ames, do you want to go ahead?
Yes. Hi, my name is Ames. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I spend a lot of my time just doing Becoming Equal stuff. So.
Awesome. All right, and then that's you.
Hi, my name is Katinka. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Aruba and a member of the Becoming Equal Committee.
Awesome. Yes. So you might have heard something new today, which Finn, Ames, and Katinka shared, and I'll share mine too. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And we'll explain in a little bit what that means. If you have been following my show for a little bit, you might have heard these before. You may have seen them in people's bios, on their Instagram, on their Twitter. So we'll explain what that really means and why it's so important to respect them and to understand what they mean. But before we go there, I want one of you to explain to us what the Becoming Equal project is. I think that it's important for people to know that we have an organization that is doing this locally. So if one of you can explain a little bit.
I think that will be me. The Becoming Equal project is an initiative that started from the Rotary Club of Aruba. The point of the project was to create awareness and social activism to educate the community on a topic that they're not as knowledgeable on and that isn't really spoken a lot in the community. And we try not to get into the legal part of it, advocating for rights and stuff, although that is a very important part. We think that in order for that change to happen, you first have to educate, change people's minds, and create a conversation for those changes to start happening. So this is our 4th year now. We're going into our 4th year. And we do social media stuff. We do talks like this. We have a YouTube series where we educate people on certain little topics. And yeah, we kind of just want to educate more people and get the word out there that there's a lot more than just being straight and cisgender.
Yes. And I have been a fan for how long? 4 years? 4 years, yeah. Since day one. I have always worked closely with Rotaract, so when I saw this and, when the project was announced, I'm like, oh my God, yes, because I follow a lot of advocacy groups from abroad, from the US, from anywhere, and just anytime that I see that we have local content being creating awareness, starting a conversation on important topics, I really think that it's important because it's often also tailored to our situation. And that's very important if we want to start a conversation, a healthy one at that, especially if we want to bring change. So you mentioned something really interesting, that process of change. And I'm part of a foundation too, so I know that it's sometimes it's hard because different people are in different levels, and then they get irritated when you're like, starting again on the awareness level. But one of our members from the foundation, she always gets annoyed with it. She's like, Carolina, but why are we always talking about awareness? And I'm like, hey, it's a process. It's a circle, right? We got to work on awareness for us to work on acceptance and respect, and then eventually go into like inclusion and actually loving the persons for who they are, whatever that means. Yep. So I always like to, share my platform in any way possible to continue to lift the voices of people who are talking about issues that matter to me, and hopefully to a bunch of other people too. So this is a very broad topic, and we can talk about everything, but obviously
we'll be here for the next week, probably.
Exactly. So, but today we really are trying to focus on something that I think is very important because it touches everyone, which is being an ally and what that really means. So, I will be posting the resource post after this. Not today, tomorrow. So you will be able to read this information as well. But I would like to give maybe Katinka the chance, as an ally, to maybe just share from your perspective, and then we'll go into some more, specific terminology and all that stuff, because it can be very overwhelming. But I think the information is extremely important. So,
yes. Well, as an ally, I think the most important thing is to just be supportive. That is the biggest part of it, I guess. And even being supportive when that person is not there. Like when you're in a group of friends and they're talking about certain subjects, or when they say something, and it's the same thing with race and jokes like that. Mm-hmm. If someone makes a joke that you're not okay with, speak up. So, yeah, as an ally, everyone makes mistakes. It's not easy. Sometimes you're so used to saying or doing certain things that you don't realize. But yeah, I think being an ally is just being supportive and asking the right questions, but not also always asking the questions you think you should ask, because not all questions are okay to ask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we might go into a little bit of that and the do's and don'ts. Mm-hmm. And, we're all learning, and I have learned so much also in like the healthcare perspective, right? Just detaching yourself from being there, where it's okay to be very intrusive mm-hmm. in people's personal lives, mm-hmm. and then just being a friend mm-hmm. and understanding that certain questions, even if you're very close to somebody, you should consider what the goal with that answer is. And mm-hmm. sometimes we just want to know, and it doesn't necessarily have added value mm-hmm. to the relationship, mm-hmm. right?
Exactly.
So yes, so support. I think that's like the basic theme when we think about allies. But maybe if you want to share a little bit more about what that could look like, and what is, I don't want to say expected, because I don't think anyone tries to have an ally with certain expectations, mm-hmm. but what we would wish would come from that allyship from those around us.
Well, I think being an ally can be in different ways. You can be an open ally that goes to marches, goes to parades, goes to advocates for laws and rights and stuff. But you can also be, if you don't want to be like open and proud and be so aggressive with it, there's also smaller ways you can do it by supporting your friends, like Katinka said, speaking out when someone says the wrong thing, mm-hmm. and correcting them, and adding that inclusive language to educate someone else. Mm-hmm. It's not just, okay, I know this, I just expect everyone else to do it. It's always going to be a constant learning curve, and I think a lot of people in the community themselves feel like that's just always something they have to do. And when you come out, whether it's openly or in your group of friends and your family, you're kind of almost signing up for the rest of your life that you're going to have to educate every single person you meet.
Yeah.
And they may never understand it, and they may actually understand it, or you'll get the same questions. So it almost feels like you should just have like a laminated like card and just be like, here's all the questions, here's my frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
If any questions you have are not on there, then you can talk to me. But it's kind of like when you're going on your own journey trying to figure out who you are. You do the research yourself, you're trying to figure it out. But the same thing as being an ally. You might not be a part of that community, but you can still do the research to learn how to support that community. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, and I think joining this project, I think through the last 3-4 years, I've learned so much. But I still sometimes say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. But you learn so much. Like, you think you know things about the LGBT community, and then you take a deeper dive, and then you're like, whoa, okay, that was just like the oppervlakte. There's so much more. That's just a tip of the iceberg. So, yeah.
And to go a little bit into that, I think, or I have personally felt that sometimes it's also hard, right? Because what you said, and some questions are repetitive, and a lot of people know that some questions can be repetitive. But I also think because the community is so diverse that although you're asking the same question, you could be getting the complete different answers depending on who you're asking. And it's hard for somebody, not in my case, because I just talk very easily with people and everyone. But, some people might be afraid of asking, even if it's like the right questions. I mean, there's no such thing, right? But coming from a good place, people might still be afraid because they don't know when you are trespassing somebody's boundaries or not. So, you made a joke about like laminating things. And although it sounds kind of funny, and we're not probably, I don't know, walk around with little cards. And I do this with autism cards. I walk around with cards. But but I know it sounds like a something way out there, but I also do think that, especially if it's somebody you care about, that maybe it's not too bad to ask of them to take some time and learn a little bit by themselves, and then kind of like come back and check in with me. What didn't you understand? What information do you feel is unclear? Let me explain how this relates to me. So, just a tip of something that I have learned, that maybe asking somebody to kind of like do their own homework first is not that bad after all,
No, exactly. But I think what you'll also find in the community is some people want to be that educator, and some people don't. Some people choose to be like, listen, this is my identity, these are my pronouns, this is what I identify as, but I don't really want to answer your questions. I just want to live my life. And there are other people who want the same thing, but also want to educate people because they know that in the long run it will not only help that person and your friendship with that person, but it'll help everyone else around you. And I think that's the big thing to learn, is that you can still be an ally and have queer friends, but not necessarily be able to ask them questions. It really, at the end of the day, is, do they want to answer those questions? Are they okay with you asking those questions? And at what point are those questions, like, off limits? And it all depends on the person.
Yeah, and it really depends on, like Ames said, it's how open your, I not guess relationship, but sometimes I just message Ames and I'm like, would this be a weird question to ask? Just because we have that relationship, we're family. But
yes, my cousin everyone.
no, but it's like sometimes I'm like, okay, I know this is a weird question to ask, but could you ask someone this just from a different perspective? Because for me it sounds logisch, I guess, to ask someone. But then if you think about it, you're like, wait, if someone would ask me that, would I be okay with that? Like, would I want someone to ask me about those things? Do I want to answer those questions? So it's also good to just turn it on yourself and be like, do I want someone to ask me those questions? Because maybe you're like, oh my God, I'm curious because I want to know this and this and this, but would you want someone to know that about you? So I think that's also a good thing, doing your research and thinking about it from your perspective. Would you want someone to ask you those questions?
And I guess just truly figuring out what information will actually be helpful for me to understand the situation, or, value a person or understand a person. So introspection is, I think, always important, especially with everyone, period, but especially when something is not norm conforming, let's put it that way. Anything that falls under that, or outside of that, actually, you really have to think about, am I asking because it's weird, or am I asking because I genuinely want to know? So before we continue, so today I received a very nice document from Ames. And I like how you use the flag, so I use them too. But it was very interesting because, I was searching stuff online too, and then I noticed that there are so many identities, and, I know a lot of them, and, we were using the flags, but then I was looking at it, and there's like more and more and more. And I guess it's so important to just realize that it is still transforming because it was suppressed, because that's, I think, the suppressed and oppressed for so long. People didn't really have the space and time to figure out what exactly their own identity meant. And I think that people, just because of what is accepted or more accepted, let's put it that way, they just decided like, okay, I think I fall under this. But I'm so happy to see that there is like a move to expand that, shows more that people can, like, I feel more like this instead of that. So I want to give you, any of you, I'm looking at Finn because we haven't really heard much of your voices. But if you can explain a little bit about what identities are, what it means to have a non-cisgender heterosexual identity.
Yeah, so there are many different kind of identities you can go under. So there are the trans, so it's either you're trans or non-binary, and there are a bunch of sexualities, so you can be gay, bisexual, pansexual. There are a bunch of things, so it just depends on who you, as a person, you like, and what you identify as. So there's so many identities, especially some of them go very in-depth and are umbrella terms, right? So trans is an umbrella term, so it stands for trans men, trans female, and non-binaries, and under those are many, many more. So it's so hard to say it in a minute about how many and what identities are, just because it isn't black and white. It's genuinely a whole spectrum on what someone wants to identify as.
Can you or anyone else explain a little bit more about that? So, and let me just ask a question to make it more specific for those who are listening as well. So somebody's attraction to somebody else is one thing, and how they identify is another thing. And I think that we use these interchangeably way too much. So I think for the purpose of understanding the difference and how one thing does not necessarily have to mean the other thing, and I know it's hard because, it's finding the right words to explain it in a way that's understandable to people who are not part of the community. But I do think it's important for us to somehow try to explain these two differences so that we don't make these wrong assumptions that because somebody identifies as whatever, doesn't mean that necessarily they're gonna like A or B, and this is something that I have encountered that we still have lots of work to do on. So maybe if one of you can explain a little bit about that.
Who wants to take it?
I'm gonna give it a try.
Okay.
So there is gender and there's sexuality. And gender is what you identify as. It's not what you were born as. So sex is the genitals you were born as, which is, for most people, female or male. And then that's gender. And then we have sexuality is on you as a person, regardless of your sex, of who you love, which is also doesn't inherently have to do about their own genitalia, just who you love as their gender identity. So a simple explanation, a trans man, they're born female. They're male because that's their gender identity. So they're male. They could be a gay man regardless of their genitals, so they can be into men regardless of their own genitals. As long as they identify as men, then it's a gay man.
I think like an easier way to probably explain that. No, I mean, you did very well.
It's very complex.
But the way I always see it, like whenever I do the research and stuff, is always your gender identity is who you are, and your sexuality is who you go to bed with.
Yeah.
And I think keeping those things separate, because they're not the same thing. Your gender is who you are, who you see yourself in the mirror, who you wake up with, who you introduce yourself as, and then your sexuality is who you swipe right on Tinder, or who you go out with, or who you take to bed, who you marry, who you whatever. And that could be anything. That could be someone who's cisgender, who's assigned female at birth or assigned male at birth, or someone who is non-binary or trans man or trans woman, and that's still just under your sexuality. It has nothing to do with who you go to bed with, has no correlation to what you identify as. And I think people see that and just completely just mesh them together, thinking it's one thing. And that, like you said, it's an interchangeable thing. And once that's separated, it seems a lot easier to start understanding once you separate the two big issues, I guess, and then you break it down from there. It's a lot easier to understand.
And I know sometimes it's hard, but I do want to ask certain questions that may seem very insensitive.
This is a safe space.
I don't want to step on too many toes, but but I think it is important to just ask these questions out loud and get an answer. And please be patient with me, but I feel like I really have to ask this question because this is something that we hear way too much, and it correlates to what we were talking about identifying and being attracted to. So one thing that we hear often here in Aruba is even if people are somewhat accepting and they're okay, as they say it, I always say, like, I don't think they care if you're okay with it, but but sometimes people will ask, oh, so who is like the man and who's the woman in the relationship? And I know, I see your faces. I hate this question too, and I always tell people there is no, like, whatever they want to call themselves, like, what? But I do think it's important, as we are explaining this particular topic, that we do explain this and just on air explain to people that a relationship does not need somebody to be identified as for it to be a working relationship. And I do think it's important too. And people will say, and I'm like, no, they both identify as female, and they're like, no, but one of them is still like more girly. Yeah.
But I think that has a lot to do with just stereotypical gender roles. Because I mean, even in just a heterosexual relationship, they're like, oh my god, but you're the woman, you're the man, and I'm like, wait, but
what if?
See, what if I'm the one that, if I have a flat tire, I'll change it myself. I don't need a man to do it for me. Like, it's
the heteronormative society we live in.
It's literally the heteronormative society.
It's like a way that we kind of make more sense to people who aren't exactly knowledgeable on it.
Yeah.
Okay, you're two women in a relationship, so
but who's the man?
But who's the man?
It's
like, well, last time I checked in the mirror, we're both women.
Yeah. So
we both wear jeans and pants if we want to. Sometimes we'll wear a skirt, and sometimes we won't. There is no who wears the pants. It's, I love this person, that's that. We're both women, that's that. Yeah. And I think it goes into like the unlearning of our societal and our culture of unlearning everything that's heteronormative and everything we've been taught growing up, and going and unlearning that and relearning that there is no there's no gender in when it comes to two women in a relationship who wears the pants. There is
two men.
Or two men even, yeah.
It's a very, I mean, I think a lot of other countries have let it go a lot easier, but Aruba is a very, I don't want to, like, machismo country. So they're very into there's a man and a woman in the relationship, so they always want to know all those things. But, I mean, what if you're in a hetero relationship, but the man likes to cook? I mean, that's also normal. That's a thing. But it doesn't make him, like, feminine or gay or whatever, because that's how they think it should be.
Exactly. And this is very cultural, and I've spoken about this
Yes.
a lot because
I
I don't know. It bothers me a lot as a
Yes.
person, period. But as a woman too, because it's like I like dressing colorful and I like all that stuff, but I am also very rough with some things, and I like doing things myself, and people will question that, right? So I have learned to like push people back when they say stuff like that, and I have also learned to push people back when they say stuff like that about other people's relationships. But I think it's important for us to have said that, and I hope that at least one person listening to this will think twice, before they ask such thing, because we need to let go again of what we have learned, which brings us comfort in our unconscious biases that with some things are healthy. I mean, we have learned not to touch hot surfaces because ouch, right?
Yeah.
Those are healthy unconscious biases. Please keep those, Do not let those go.
Someone
Do
jumps
not
off a bridge, don't jump out.
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
don't eat your shampoo, right?
Who's told you that? I've never been told not to eat shampoo.
It's, again,
It
it's
says
like-
it
it's
says on the
something
bottle.
you're
Just
yeah.
saying.
Oh, okay. I need to
Yes,
I need to
you
make my
should
shampoo
read the
bottle.
shampoo bottle sometime.
Yeah.
I think because maybe you're from like a little bit younger generation, but there was a time when
Where-
you would sit on the
And
toilet.
not take your phone and just read the shampoo bottle.
Yeah.
Oh no, I read the soap bottles.
Oh, okay. It says don't eat them.
Yes, the soap I know not to eat.
No, but thank you so much for this light moment.
Before we get really hard.
Yeah. But I do think it's important that we realize that sometimes because of our own comfort, we want to explain things in terms that we understand, right? And it's the same with almost everything. But in this case, you are affecting somebody else's life. You could be in some way hurting someone, especially if you're doing it to their faces, and I do think it's important that we tell people that you do not need to have a man or a woman or a masculine and a feminine person in a relationship for it to be a good relationship or a healthy relationship. So thank you for explaining that a little bit. And so a very important topic that I definitely want to talk about is conversion therapy. Because I feel like anytime that I bring it up around people that I know, which I'm happy about, that they have grown up in healthy and secure and
Affirming.
yes, families, that they have not heard of such term. And it's also part of privilege, right? You haven't been in a position where that term could have even been brought up. So I think that's also important to acknowledge. But I don't think that enough people stand still on how horrible, because there's not a word, horrible and evil this practice is, and how common it still is. And we think that happens far away in countries like Egypt, right? Egypt is like really bad if you're not Muslim heterosexual, but it happens. It happens in Aruba, like even in like smaller ways. It's funded by churches. This happens, and I do think that we need to explain this. And when I tell people like conversion therapy, they don't even think about it relating to the LGBTQIA community. They think about it as like something else, like you're trying to convert somebody into like a religion or whatever. And I'm like, no. No. So I don't know. Does anyone want to explain what conversion therapy is before we go into why we should never, under any circumstances, think that we need to fix people so that we don't support these practices? So.
Ooh, who wants to take that one?
No one. And I can go ahead. I mean,
you want to go?
Conversion therapy usually is, you could kind of call it brainwashing, I guess. It's just telling you over and over that what you are or what you do is wrong, and it makes you want to believe that you shouldn't be that way, and that you need to be normal. So
that heteronormative, like
Yeah.
being hetero and being
is
straight is the only
thing
way.
you need to be.
Yeah.
And the way they do it, it's just torture. So it's not just like in the movies you see them like they brainwash you with music and movies and blah blah blah, but it's not like that. It's like more like CIA.
It's like,
Yes.
it's certified torture. Is what
Yeah,
it is.
it's
Uh-huh.
torture. Yeah.
The UN has made reports like this is torture,
It
like
is.
you know, especially because it tends to happen to the youth. It's anyway.
It's a lot of the practices that conversion therapy uses is electroshock therapy. There's physical and emotional abuse. There's a heavy relying on the Bible and religion and using that to like a scare tactic almost to scare kids into being straight. And unfortunately, that's still something that happens here. I think we posted something about that a couple of years back. I think it was one of our news outlets here posted an article that there is a church here that's funding kids to be sent to Santo Domingo to a 6-week conversion therapy camp. And it's you're getting angry and I'm seeing it. But it's like why would you want to change someone? Like you can't.
It's not just wanting to change someone, because I can sort of understand that when I meet somebody and their opinion is so far from my opinion, I'll be like, you know, I'm gonna try to convince you, but that you want it so bad that you are willing to
torture someone.
Exactly. And I think that's where that line is, and it is important to understand that, you know, because it's where do you draw the line? So people will say that no, but certain forms of are acceptable, but one is the gateway to another. The moment that you believe that you can do things and that it's justified in the idea of wanting to change someone, you are walking on thin ice. Like it's yeah. Ooh. So I was reading a lot on it, and I also shared a video recently about it because I feel like I thought that this was something that more people knew, and that people knew that it was, you know, that we have local churches that found it, that people will send, like it's like summer camp, but for where non-heterosexual youth goes, so like gay or lesbian or trans, and then they go there and they go through, like, for example, a 6-week period where a group of people, and sometimes even professionals in like mental health and all this stuff, they'll go and do procedures, all kinds of activities to try to, in those 6 weeks, convert somebody from gay or lesbian to heterosexual. And I was reading about the type of things that were used, you know, the electric shock, but also you know, just using physical abuse to like recondition a thought. So anytime that somebody says something that is not in accordance with, right, they get hit. This is very serious, forcing people to watch like straight porn, you know? And I don't think that, I don't necessarily think that parents who are doing this want their child to be tortured. I think they want their child to be changed, to be fixed. But I don't think that most of them actually sit down and realize the consequences of such practices. And I do want us, you know, anybody who's watching and people in Aruba to realize that this is not something far away from home. This is something that happens here too on smaller scales, and children are being sent abroad, and this scars people and families for life. Like, you change somebody's brain, you know, you are not in the way intended to, but you are scarring somebody so badly that you are creating other mental health issues that will come back and will have a huge impact. And I don't think we talk about it enough.
No,
not at all.
No.
I think what people need to realize, no matter how religious you are, no matter how many times a day you pray to God, you are born the way you are born. No matter how good in the eyes of God you are, you could have never said a swear word, never drank in a single sip of alcohol, and you will still be gay no matter what. It's not something you can simply change. by praying or by sending someone to church or conversion therapy. It's something simply you can't change no matter what. It doesn't mean that that person has done bad things. It's just the way they are, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you, Finn, for that, because I think that also gives a little bit perspective on the idea that being religious and being gay or lesbian or anything not heterosexual are not mutually exclusive. You can be a very spiritual or very religious person. You can be very in touch with, God or Jesus, whatever that deity is for you, and still be gay. What you were saying, you can still live a life in accordance with, religious rules, whatever those rules are for you, and still be gay. And I think that if the goal is for people to believe in something, whatever that may be, you would want that goal to be achieved, regardless of who that person feels identified, and who they love. And I think that there has been an unhealthy divide with the two groups, and with reason. I mean, I'm not going to say we have no reason for that to have happened. There is reason, but I do think that it's important that people know that, one thing does not mean that you can't be the other. So I think that more people should be having that conversation too, and welcoming people to have that space to believe in who they want to believe in or what they want to believe in, and still be themselves without that being, the reason for you not to be allowed to be part of that group. I think it's which goes into discrimination, right? That's something that happens, and I think that people don't believe this is something that happens, that by your gender identity or your sexual orientation that might cause discrimination, but it does. So we were looking at queer struggles, different types of struggles that we see, and I do think it's important for us to talk a little bit about what that looks like, and especially what that looks like here too in our community.
I have so much to say about it.
Go ahead.
So I came out as trans in 2018, and back then I was still in Juliana. Am I allowed to say their name?
Too late.
You mean school?
You mean school?
Yeah, I mean
the school did such
fine.
a horrible job making sure I was okay. For me, it was mostly I was trying to use the male restroom because that's my identity. I'm a man. Why would I be using the female bathroom? So we tried countless of times to try and, for me to be able to use the male bathroom, even with my therapist saying we support him, we'll give you a card. He's genuinely trans, not trying to, be something weird in their eyes or whatever. Simple way to explain it, I don't know. But they said straight to my face, you can use it, but you're gonna have to sign a note that's saying if you get beat up, it's your own fault.
Like a waiver, yeah.
Yeah, so if I were to get beat up by anyone at school for using...
Sorry.
That's fine.
So if I were to get beat up for using the male bathroom, that I can't do anything about it, that it was solely my fault.
Like the school won't protect you.
No, not at all. And it was the same with not supporting, not pushing teachers to use my correct pronouns and my correct name. Because when I first came out, it took a while to change my name officially. And I wasn't asking for much. I was just saying, hey, please avoid my name. It isn't my name. But a lot of them just still pushed it down and made sure they used mevrouw and my birth name, even though I said, hey, I'm trans, it's meneer, just use my last name. I understand that for some people it's genuinely really, really hard, but to say my birth name to my face on purpose is a different story. And I really tried to talk to school about it. I said, hey, I understand, it's hard. Please just use my surname. Let me use my surname on tests instead of letting me use my first name. But they straight out declined. They did such a horrible job trying to support me as a trans youth at my own school.
First of all, thank you for sharing. And I'm glad that we created a space and a conversation here that you felt like you could share that. I want to acknowledge that you didn't have to, but I think it is important to share such stories so that people know that this is not, we have trans youth. I mean, let's just start there, right?
Yeah.
We have trans youth, and they go to school, and they use restrooms. I mean, right? And yeah, I'm kind of blank right now because it is close to home, and sometimes it's hard when it's close to home, right?
But over the
Yeah.
algemeen in Aruba, the support for trans youth or trans
Nothing.
humans is
Just a trans community.
Zero.
It's 0 to none.
So
pretty much.
even medical, anything like the support isn't there because I think the education isn't there, and that's why it's the biggest thing why we want to start becoming equal is because I think a lot of the ignorance or the
Lack of knowledge.
the
and
lack of knowledge
education.
is the biggest thing. Like the more you know that some things you were doing are wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've noticed that trying to become more accepting, the first thing you always accept are gay men. They're for some reason the easiest to accept. And one of the hardest things to accept for some reason is that trans people exist and we are what we say we are. I'm a man no matter what my passport says, right? And it's people have such a hard time wrapping their head around the existence of trans people for some reason, especially non-binary people, because they don't fit, but they don't fall for men and women, and that's what people understand the most, just men and women.
They understand the binary.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the other issue with the bathroom issue itself is that people, at least in the States, I've noticed with a lot of articles in the past couple of years, it's always been the issues of, oh, but I don't want a trans woman, or they'll use the wrong one in this case and be like a trans man to walk into the women's bathroom and to molest my child. And it's like, we're not there to do that. We just want to pee.
Yeah.
It's like on top of that, like a trans man would use the male restroom and the trans woman would use the female restroom. We're there for the same reason you are. We're just there to use the restroom, clean our hands for 20 seconds, and leave.
Yeah.
We're not there for anything else.
Do you feel like there was a starting point on this particular issue becoming such an issue? So, I mean, I can't pinpoint it, and my brain does not think like that, so I can't even relate to it.
2016.
Yeah,
When Donald
it's
Trump
when
became
Donald Trump
president.
became president. It's that Obama allowed trans kids to use the bathroom they wanted, and was starting to finally put up laws to support trans youth and just trans people in general. But as soon as Trump became president, he took everything back, and that's where it really started to be like, oh, pushing fears into people, like, oh, I don't want my kids being molested by these grown men, even though they're female.
Okay, but we have statistics. Statistics are wonderful. Numbers are wonderful. And I don't think, and I'm not even fact checking because my brain knows numbers, general numbers, but I have never seen a report where it says that an alarming number of trans people molest children.
Because there isn't any.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
There is no data because it doesn't happen, or if it does, it's
very minimal.
It's like a 0.00001%, and that person probably just has a mental disorder that makes them. It's basically a pedophile, but that's everyone across the board. Anyone can be a pedophile.
Exactly. So and I mean, we may not have an answer, but I'm just, trying to think because sometimes if we figure out origin, then we can work on it. But I'm just wondering, where did we decide that being trans or, just let's keep it a trans, that relates to harassment or abuse or just wondering, and we may not have an answer, but I'm just wondering, and I want people to think about this too. Like, why are we scared to the point that we believe that, it's a threat?
Because they don't know.
It's a lack of knowledge, I think.
Yeah, and it's what I've noticed is that the least supported group in almost the whole LGBT is trans females. It's because of most of them, for most people, they don't pass enough. Passing means they don't look like a woman enough. So they'll see a trans woman that's gone through male puberty, so they'll have a more masculine face structure and be like, no, you're not a woman, you're a man. And men have always been seen as more monsters compared to
Predators,
females.
yeah.
Like, oh, they're monsters, they can't stop themselves. They've always been the ones to be that to sexually assault, even though it is true, but it's not always the fact. So I think it's mostly when we are talking about the trans people not being allowed to use the bathroom they use, it's always about trans females, just they were born males, and
Well, that's an interesting correlation with toxic masculinity in general, right?
Nice connection.
Yes, and I can see it. I mean, thank you so much, Finn, for explaining it like that. It made sense in my brain immediately, just the idea. And I think what you said for trans men, because for trans women, because they were born male, and then
they will always be male, even though that's not how that works.
And the fear that we already have for males, right? Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Thank you so much for that thought process.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that it's a hard one to go back on because, it's toxic masculinity, and we would need to work on that on a very deep level, and okay. But thank you so much for that. But yes, so those are one of the issues, and there are issues with healthcare, which I am assuming that correlate directly to support and to the process. I think it's important for people to understand, and I just want everybody to reflect. So we get sex ed at school, and
if we get sex ed.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't think we do. I don't think we get an actual sex ed.
Well,
the year I was supposed to have a hoofdstuk biologie over sex, my teacher was like, no, we're not going to talk about it. We're going to just skip the hoofdstuk. And I'm like, sure.
Oh, no.
Healthy.
Well, yeah, I said that, and then I'm trying to think if I got sex ed. Because
I didn't. I didn't. You did?
I did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice.
I was going to say that definitely the younger generation have more. Let's put it that way. And I know that some schools still have the rule, like they don't have to if it's like if they want to basis. But let's say that even for those that want to and are open for sex ed, but sex ed material is very cisgender.
Yeah.
It's very
right.
And also heteronormative.
Yes, it's for people. It's. So it is hard, right? Because we don't really learn about healthy sexual relationships for anything not being a man and a woman, in the heteronormative form. So how do we teach the other group? Like, how are they learning what is safe and not safe? And how do they even start conversations with healthcare providers if it's not, I'm asking. I mean, I don't know.
I think, at least from the stories that I've heard and the people I've spoken to, a lot of them end up going to porn. And they learn the wrong way. Because everything in porn is fabricated. It's fake. It's scripted. And so they see that that's how it's done there, so they think that's how it should be done. And by not, whether you're getting a sex ed with like a queer sex ed or the heteronormative sex ed, you're still not getting the sexual health part of it. You're not really being educated that you can get an IUD, that the morning after pill, the pill itself, what's it called again?
The NuvaRing?
NuvaRing, yes, an IUD. They're not telling you that there are so many different ways that you can protect yourself. I just think Aruba mainly explains it's like there's abstinence,
the pill,
or there's
condom.
a pill,
Or condom.
or there's a condom.
Yeah.
They
That's
push
it.
mainly abstinence and condoms. And most gay people will never think that, and then it's like, I don't need to do that because porn tells me I don't have to. And then you open yourself up to so many risks.
exactly.
And it's risks that you're not educated on in
because
school.
what we learn in school is that, oh my God, if you have sex, you can get pregnant. And I think a lot of gay men are like, but I can get pregnant, so I don't need a
fine.
condom. But like, there are other things you can get, like there's so much out there on the street that like people don't know about, or they don't think, they're like, oh, we're in Aruba, we're a tiny island. But if you look at the STD rates here
Yeah, I
in
was gonna
Aruba,
say.
it's not. The
And that's
STD
the
rates are
other-
high.
That's the other bad thing, is that there has not been a statistic, like data release on STDs or STIs since 2012.
Yeah, we did when was it, April? April we did STD awareness month on our page,
Mm-hmm.
and we were looking for this information, and the information we got was outdated. Was 2012.
2012 published 2013.
Yeah.
And even then, it had the highest STD rates were rated among men, and a lot of it was for chlamydia, gonorrhea, and even AIDS and HIV were at a high, staggering rate.
Mm-hmm.
And where was the awareness for that back then? Why aren't you continuing the statistics? Why aren't all government bodies working together?
And
to
why
keep
aren't they
providing that?
public?
Why aren't they
You
public?
you would think that you want your public to know that what is out there. Like, there's a reason you need to be careful, because it is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, I do think it's important that we are aware of this, are aware that you know, it's not just about getting pregnant. Like, that's not the worst thing that can happen. Really having that understanding is really important. But also other parts of healthcare, right? Because if we don't even know how to address certain things, because we haven't been taught how to address them, it's really hard. Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit, if you want to share, about, you know, you mentioned your therapist, so I'm gonna go in and then ask if you want to share more a little bit, you know, about that. But you had some sort of support system.
Yes.
I think it's important for people to know what a good support system would be like for somebody who's trans. Like, what does it entail? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so I personally have a very accepting therapist, no matter what my gender is or my sexuality. That's not the case for some of my friends. They go to therapy too. It's private. I go to Respaldo if anyone wants to go to Respaldo. I've heard that most private therapists have many queer kids have had very, very bad experiences.
Okay.
Saying that that their trans isn't real, that it's gonna go over, and that's a trend, or pushing a label down someone's throat. That's all very, very harmful. Like, if someone tells you, "Oh, I'm this, I'm that," you can't tell them, "No, you're this," and "No, you're actually that."
Mm-hmm.
That's not how that works. A very healthy support can be someone who is supportive of, obviously, of your pronouns or your sexuality, and accepts you no matter what, and doesn't cross the boundaries, which is very important. Yeah, just respectful overall, especially from a mental health professional. It's very, very important to be supportive of queer youth, just because the suicide rate amongst queer kids are super high for that exact reason. It gets neglected a lot, that kids can be queer, and we are queer no matter what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to go into the last part, right? Because I hope that we really learned a couple of things today that will make us better persons, you know, and hopefully also better allies. But one of, I think, the important things that we still need to touch is, you know, just inclusive language, what that sounds like and what that means. And we sort of talked a little bit about that, and, you know, asking intrusive questions. But also just, you know, little do's and don'ts. I think those are important. And then just, you know, sharing what we all believe we would need to do in order to be better allies. So go.
Let's see, where would you start with that? I mean, I guess the first thing I would always say is do your research first.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just rely on your gay friends to tell you and educate you. Like, they can tell you their story, they can tell you how they interpret everything, but you'll never really understand the full concept if you don't do your own research and then ask your friends. I would also say stand up to like discrimination, and if people use insensitive language or even like curse words,
Bad jokes.
slurs, like call that out. Don't just go like, haha, you shouldn't say that. Like, no, just be like, don't be a bad person. Just stop saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think also like if you're talking in a conversation with someone and they use the wrong pronouns or a wrong name, if they use someone's dead name, those are important things to also correct.
Can you explain real quick what that name is, just so
We
that?
haven't used that yet.
No.
Yeah, no.
Dead
So that people know what you're talking about, because we might confuse somebody.
Yeah, someone's dead name is the name they're given at birth, or that's on their birth certificate. Someone who is trans will have been given a name at birth, but once they start like transitioning socially, usually they have a new name. They have their name that feels that's their name.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone tells you that name, use that name. Don't ever go back to the dead name.
Yeah.
It can be hard. I mean, I understand. If you've known someone for 20 years by their dead name, it's hard to switch.
Yeah.
She's
Like-
looking at me.
That's okay. It's okay.
At you.
This is a
but-
safe space.
but it's hard because you're so it's something you're conditioned to do, but don't see it as like
Being called out or anything.
yeah, no, it's like you say someone's name and you're like, oh shit, no, wait, this, and then just
Yeah.
correct yourself and keep going.
Yeah.
Don't like make a big deal, don't make a fuss out of it, because then
Yeah.
you're gonna put more attention to the fact that you did make a mistake.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but also if you're having a conversation with other people and they use someone's dead name or the wrong pronouns, it's very important to tell them, no, they use their he, her, or of he.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Or they, them, or
Uh-huh.
her. So it's very important to speak up even when that person isn't there.
Yes, that is important,
Yes.
and that's with everything. And I think that's hard.
Yes.
That is hard
is,
for a lot of people to just yeah.
To make that switch.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't know how, as an ally, but as someone who is trans, or I think they can understand.
Mm-hmm.
I think they understand as well that it's. I mean,
You don't expect the change to just happen
Yeah.
no,
instantaneously.
exactly.
That's why most people, the way I always explain it is just like, if you make the mistake, apologize, correct, move on. Don't hang on it. Don't keep going back to it. Just
Yeah.
make the change, acknowledge you made the mistake, and then move on. And then slowly it'll just get better and better.
Mm-hmm. And I think also a very important thing is to just listen. If that person feels comfortable enough around you to tell you these things, just listen. Don't always feel like, oh my god, I don't understand, let me ask questions. No, just remember your question,
Mm-hmm.
do your own research, and then if you're still confused, maybe then think about if it's a question you would want someone to ask you, and just respectfully ask.
Well, I think that oftentimes when somebody brings up the topic for the first time, even to somebody that they're close with, there might be a big chance that they themselves have not had the chance to really dig in deep, right? And respecting that too, that they themselves may not even have the
Fully
answers.
understand.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important too, that we respect that, and that we give people time and space to figure out what it means to them, how they
Yeah,
feel.
and I think that's why we wanted this project to be like, our focus is mostly Educate Aruba, but also like the world. I don't know, but if there's a 12-year-old out there Googling something and they come to our page and they figure out and they see our content and they're like, oh, okay, so this is why I feel this way, because this is who I am. That's what we want as well. We want, because in Aruba, everybody knows you're gay, you're lesbian. That's all they know.
Uh-huh.
They don't know the in-between. They don't know what else falls under, the LGBTQIA+. So it's...
And it
I
takes
think
time.
It does.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that once we realize and we're honest with ourselves that we are going to make mistakes and that, you know, we are figuring it out together, that it's going to go much better if we try to fight it and just wanting to have answers like now, you know, and yeah.
I think another thing to like remember is not only as an ally, but also as someone as part of the community, that your sexuality and your gender identity can be fluid.
Yeah, it can
You
change.
may, like right now, you may identify as cisgender and gay, but who knows, in like 6 months, all that will change. You're like, oh, actually, no, maybe I'm not cisgender, but I am straight. And that
Or
can
maybe,
change,
yeah.
and that whoever you come out to, that's not a done set deal. You didn't sign the contract, whatever. It's that sexuality and gender identity are both very fluid things.
Yeah.
I wanted to add one thing to the topic before.
Yeah.
Personally, this has happened a lot to me. Something you really you shouldn't do at all. People around you constantly feel like they have to out you. So
Yes.
when I first came out, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this is Finn. Oh no, yeah, he's trans." It's like it's not necessary.
Okay, I
At
see it
all.
like that.
It's super annoying because, yeah, first when you come out, my whole being was about being trans, but I've been out for like 3 years now, and it doesn't play a day-to-day role in my life anymore. It doesn't matter that I'm trans. Like just I've been on hormones for so long. I've changed my name. It's just it isn't so important to me to be constantly reminded. Oh yeah, trans. Like I'm a man. That's what it is. Like
Not everyone wants to be reminded either. Not all trans
Exactly.
individuals wants to be reminded that they're
Yeah,
trans.
and
Yeah.
it's not your story to out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If someone has told you this maybe in confidence, and
Yeah.
it's not your place either to go around telling everyone, guess
Yeah.
who, guess
Yeah.
who's a lesbian. No,
Like
Yeah.
that's something you can do as an ally as well. Is if someone comes out to you, you can ask them, okay, who knows, who doesn't know?
Yeah.
Can I talk to other people about this?
To
And
what extent can I
to
talk
what
about
extent?
it?
Exactly. Like, are you comfortable with this? Do you want me to keep this to myself for now?
Yes.
Do you want me to tell other people? Do you want me to, come out for you so it's easier for you? That's all questions that you as an ally can ask that person and help see how you can help them with their journey.
Yep.
Because at that point, it's not necessarily about you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about how you feel. It's not about you understanding. It's you are being, and you are being trusted with this information
Yeah.
to someone. And what are you going to do to help them?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point. And Finn, what you said too, again, it's we feel like when we introduce someone, we have to explain something.
Yeah.
And whatever it may be. And it's usually the thing that will stand out the most in whatever way
or
possible.
what they think is most special, I guess,
Yeah.
about that
Yeah,
person.
or different, right? You'll have somebody who comes into a party and is like, "This is my friend
My
Karen.
story.
Karen is doctor."
Good for Karen.
Okay, great, Karen,
Yeah, but
right?
You wouldn't really do that to
Yeah.
a doctor. You would mean like, oh yeah.
No. Some
Yeah.
people do.
Oh no, some people.
Some
don't.
people
Some
do.
people
Yeah,
actually do.
yeah. And it's because they need to explain something about that
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
that they
Not
think will
necessarily.
either make that person like them or, have a prejudgment that will help them understand them. And it's not necessarily true because it doesn't really say much of who you are. It's just something that you do or a part of your history or, but it's a very human thing to
Yeah.
try to do that. And I think that some people may be okay with somebody telling everybody that they're
Yeah.
doctors, but some people don't even want people to be sharing their profession. So I think that we have to be more conscious of outing other people and just understanding what is okay and not okay to be sharing with everyone, right?
It's also very important to realize that for many people it's not safe to come out too.
No.
Like I've been harassed multiple times for being trans, so who I choose to tell that I'm trans is a very small group, just because for a lot of people it genuinely isn't safe to say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gay or I'm trans. Or I've had it very often where I'll know this person and they'll think I was born a man. As soon as I tell them, oh, hey, I'm trans, they'll misgender me on purpose. They'll start using she, her, even though they had no idea I was trans beforehand. So especially for trans people, coming out is such a hassle. You have to make sure you're safe. You have to make sure this person's going to react well. So, so if someone just tells you, oh, a trans friend, it's like, I don't know this person. I don't know how they're going to react. I don't know if I'm safe anymore.
Exactly. I don't know what they're going to do with that information. It's Thank you. Thank you for that tip. I think that was very important. Yes. So before we close, we will be sharing this list, but I do think it's nice and good to go over it. Little things that we do, words that we use, that we should try to recondition our brain not to use. So the word normal,
Yeah.
you know, let's try to get that word out of our vocabulary for all things. Like, you know, what is normal? So, you know, don't use it as a comparison to somebody who's gay, for example. Do not say, like, this person is normal and this person is gay, because no. So that is something that I want everybody to have, and it's like on top of my list, because I feel like I shouldn't have to even include it, but let's include it, right? Right pronouns, right? And it's not necessarily that you will learn them immediately and just not make mistakes, but I think the most important thing is acknowledging and respecting. I think that once we put that respect on it, we will be more aware and more conscious of how we use them.
Sure.
And normalize them too.
Yeah.
So even if you are cisgender, normalize using pronouns so that when they are presented to you, it's not a foreign concept. I think that has helped. I like that I am seeing more people using them, because it makes people wonder, go search, learn.
Yeah.
So please use them. That's like one of the simplest things. Oh my God, I'm so sorry about my allergies. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, right? Hey guys, when we do this, it's learned words that we use when we open up a statement. Let's move away a little bit from that. I use folks a lot.
I use y'all, and people call me cowboy.
Yes, I use folks and y'all, and then people will be like, "Why do you use Southern words?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, I studied in the South." But besides that, you know,
Y'all is just fun to say.
Yeah.
What's up, y'all?
yeah, I like that too. But you know, guests, friends, just try to be aware that you're not trying to single out people, although it's learned behavior. Try to work on it. Real names, right? But we were talking about that name. So when you ask somebody like, "But what was your real name?"
Something
Yeah.
you should never ask.
No, never ask that. No matter how close you are to that person, never ask that question.
Yes, if they want to share, so be it.
Yeah.
But not that you have to, like, as if the new name or whatever is not real, right?
Yeah.
It's by using the word real, it's invalidating its existence. So, so I think that's both genders or opposite sexes. So we have this list now, which is great. But when I was growing up, gender wars was really in. It's like the pink team and the blue team.
Oh, yeah.
And they go and do activities, and I'm like, it always like sat wrong with me as a person, not necessarily because of this topic, but just because I felt like, why are we even doing this, right? Now, when I even see that these things still happen, like at schools and stuff, I'm like, oh. So please, let's, work on that. Mailman, fireman, policeman, stop putting man after it, right? Mail clerk, firefighter, officer. Let's work on that.
I feel things like that, like in Papiamento, it's easier because things aren't gendered. You say e. There's no
police,
she, and there's no she, there's no her in Papiamento. So in Papiamento, it's very easy to not misgender someone.
Yes, so you shouldn't have an excuse in Papiamento,
No, exactly.
No.
But in Dutch and in English, it's harder.
Especially Spanish.
Spanish, because
Spanish.
everything you have
Because
to
the
add
words.
O at the end.
Yes. Like Spanish is a very gendered language.
Exactly.
Also referring to people as a thing, so like a gay, a transgender, right? It's a person.
Yeah.
So make sure that you add that. I think those were really important do's and don'ts. So I'm going to give you a chance to mention anything else, and then we'll close up. Anything else that you would want people to remember from today's talk?
Let's see. I think what I'd hope people take away is that what we spoke about, it's only like the beginning. It doesn't even scratch the surface. There's still so many issues that are still going on worldwide, and that I think the big thing this year is a lot of people are saying, oh, let's go to Pride because Pride was canceled last year. Everyone wants to go to the Pride parade, the Pride festivities, but it's not a parade. It's not. It's a celebration of the work we've done the last 50 plus years. But Pride is still a march because we're still not equal.
Exactly.
We're still fighting for our basic human rights in most countries. We're still fighting to be seen, to be recognized, to be heard. So Pride is a time.
It's not just in June.
It's not just in June. That's the big part. Everyone just thinks it's just in June.
No, it's
but
it's
it
year
happens
long.
year round. It's all the time, and it's not. We're not just celebrating like, oh my God, yes, let's just put rainbows everywhere. No.
They're cute. We
cute.
see them.
We love
I know.
them.
I know.
But
yes.
we're still fighting. We're not here to have a party to be like, oh my God, yes, look at this wonderful year we've had. Let's close out the year. No, it's like, y'all are now finally going to listen to us in June, so let's really push
I was gonna say
the changes that we need to do.
if you're not going to, if you're not a person that's searching for information the rest of the year, and maybe that's not a topic that has affected you or interested you, during this time, when you see it pop up because it's there more present, at least take the time to read the message and why the rainbow is important, right? Why is it being showcased? So yeah, thank
And that's
you for
called
that.
rainbow washing, actually. We spoke about that recently. It's companies and
Capitalism.
Yeah.
that too.
Companies that bank on, it's June, so let's make a
June
rainbow.
Pride
They bank on
rainbow
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
everything.
For June, for some
Ugh.
reason, like Nike and Spotify, they think that changing their logos is enough to be like, yeah, we support the whole community.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
okay,
throughout the year, they don't
where
do
are you in
anything.
April? Where are you in November? Where are you in December? Where are you in January?
Lobbying,
You're
advocating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where are you the year round?
Yeah.
Where is your support? Like
Yeah.
just because it's in June and you have a new clothing line dropping, that's
Yeah.
stretch.
Or supporting or giving money to anti-LGBT creators
That's-
too.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes. We could go there.
Oh,
But
Or even lobbyists.
But we don't-
we don't have time.
we don't have time
There's
today
no
to
way.
go there. But I do encourage a healthy discussion in the comment sections. And on my Instagram, I would love to talk a little bit about these things. And, you guys are always welcome. You see, I just did it.
You
Yes.
guys.
I said,
you
guys.
did it.
And I realized as soon as it came out of my mouth. So, yeah. But you're always welcome. And we have had conversations. And for everybody that knows, we had a rocky start.
No, Pika.
Let's not bring that up.
They made me cry. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it was amazing. If we wouldn't have had that, I wouldn't feel the way that I feel about this project even more. Although I have supported it from the start, the way that I feel about the project now and its members has come to a new level. So thank you so much for educating us. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks
for
for having
giving
us.
us a voice.
Yeah,
Yes.
giving us a platform that's
Yeah.
bigger than just our Instagram and Facebook.
I think that, if you don't follow Becoming Equal Project yet, please do. Their content is really, really nice. I mean, aesthetically nice, but besides that, it's very informative, it's very straightforward, and you can get from 0 to 100. You'll have like small, easy to chew information all the way to I have to sit down and process information, and I like that. So thank you so much for being local creators, for pushing this forward, for creating awareness campaigns that matter to our community. Thank you so much. And again, we will be sharing, I'm always sharing stuff from the Becoming Equal Project. So please follow them, read the stuff, watch the videos, and just learn and let it sink in. So before I go, yes, this is Pride Month, and the only thing I'm gonna ask from you this Pride Month is to give at least 30 minutes of your time to learn something new that you didn't know before from the LGBTQIA plus community, because you will thank me later. The more you know and understand, the happier and calmer, and this is very contradicting sometimes because I get stressed out first, but then once you learn and you understand more, you can go through life being more happy with how diverse we all are and how special We are all. So please do that. Before I go, I want to encourage you to tune in into Politicata Cruel in a little bit. I think it's going to be interesting. But all of our other shows, we have Florin Talk, we have Ejecuta. I always have a hard time with this name. Unfuckwithable. Yes, I said it right, Jeff? He's clapping in the back. It's hard. It's a hard name. But yes, No Stay Pabo, Pillow Talk, Bam Papi Salud, Sopi Mix, Tech Impact, and Raw. Thank you so much to Sopi Mix Studio for giving us a space to be open to talk about topics that we don't get to talk about in other media platforms. Let's call them the stereotypical ones, the mainstream ones. So thank you so much. Thank you once again. And this was Sincerely Carolina. The information you heard here today was provided by the Becoming Equal Project. Follow them, read the resource post, click the links. But also, I hope to see you here next week so we can continue talking about important topics that will help us create a better community. Thank you so, so much. Take care. Have a nice week. And I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.